Cards to Yards, brought to you by the Adventure Stadium and the Adventure Begins, located on 1488, right next to a big old movie theater. I'm Chaz Graves, and here with me today, Preston Laird and Mark Blair.
Thank you, Chaz, for that introduction. As always, I'm Mark, along with Preston. This is Cards to Yards, where we talk all things sports and sports cards, coming to you from Adventure Stadium at the top of Adventure Begins Comics and Games. Preston, we're still in this awesome time of sports where we got basketball playoffs, hockey playoffs. The MLB season is starting to take shape. What are your initial thoughts on all the sporting events going on right now?
Man, the excitement level is at an all-time high right now. I've been watching my Colorado Avalanche kick some butt. Unfortunately, they didn't seal the deal last night. But, yeah, I've caught some basketball. Golden State's tearing it up like I thought they would. And your Boston guys, man, you nailed it on the head there, man. They're like the most complete team in the Eastern Conference. It's crazy. And hockey, my gosh, the hockey matches. I've actually started watching some hockey games that aren't related to the Colorado Avalanche and been having a blast. So it doesn't get much better when you got playoffs going in two different sports, and then you're just starting to get ramped up in baseball. I mean, Aaron Judge is tearing the cover off the ball right now, and the Astros are on fire, and our pitching staff is like one of the best in the league. So yeah, I mean, it's just a great time right now to be a sports fan. And
also, like, with this season of sports that we're going through, with the two playoffs going on in the NHL and NBA, and then the MLB, like I said, starting to take shape, and we'll hit the All-Star break before we know it. So like the players' seasons will sort of like, you'll be able to statistically see who's pulling ahead. Mm-hmm. That's when, this time is when cards go nuts.
Yes.
And especially the big stars. So we'll get to that. We'll get to the Stanley Cup playoffs and our predictions for the NBA Finals. But speaking of the Finals, some very important memorabilia sold from Golden Auctions. They had a huge auction. And we've been talking about this since we've been doing the show, but memorabilia is really finding a new niche for that high-end value collector, right? So,
yes.
More than just, we always see like the big cards that sell, they're always like one of one, patch cards. But now people are starting to turn to full jerseys. We've talked about the shoes earlier. So a Bill Russell jersey from Game 7 of the 1966 NBA Finals just sold for under $1 million.
Wow.
And it's a nice jersey too, signed by him and everything. But they always do this photo matching to authenticate the jerseys. And in addition to that, a Dr. J jersey from his ABA days, sold for just over $500,000, and of course making that the most expensive ABA item that's ever sold.
Yeah.
But that's a pretty cool part of history.
And in case you don't know, ABA is the American Basketball Association.
Yeah.
And they kind of merged with the NBA. What was it, in the early 70s?
Early to mid 70s, yeah.
So, it kind of like USFL, they kind of merged into the NFL when they folded. So, but absolutely incredible. Yeah, I mean, we were on tickets a couple of weeks ago that have been going for outrageous amounts. We've always known that game used merchandise is going to be high dollar stuff, but when you're talking this type of history, you just don't see that hit the market every day. A 1960s Finals jersey of any kind. Super cool, awesome for the hobby. It's going as strong as it's ever been right now, especially on the memorabilia side.
And people throw around the term GOAT so much, these days. But Bill Russell, true GOAT. I mean,
no doubt.
11 championships is insane. Will never be matched.
No one's ever going to match it.
There's no way.
Nope. Imagine how much. Now, I assume this is in the Hall of Fame, the basketball hall, but imagine how much Wilt Chamberlain's 100-point basketball would go for. Could you imagine?
No.
And they had to use more than one ball.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I mean, because it shows him, holding the ball up in the picture with the 100 points on it.
Oh, yeah.
I imagine that's in the Hall of Fame, but that would be multi-million-dollar ball, I'm sure, if it ever hit the auction block.
Yeah, and then you always, as long as, I would assume, like, if you buy something 50 years after something retired, you're not going to make the same mistake that the guy who bought Tom Brady's last touchdown bought did.
Exactly.
Although that was all...
Because it's cemented.
For anyone following, that was actually refunded.
Was it?
Because we were wondering about that. It sold for like 500 and something thousand.
I love it.
But yeah, the game used memorabilia, the game used balls, like I think that is finding its own niche. Like Fanatics is also kind of dedicated part of their website to that. Yep. They have what they call locker room auctions. That focuses more on teams they have contracts with, like the Yankees and the aforementioned Aaron Judge and current players. But so that's not going to command as much, but you're still going to make thousands.
Yep.
All that stuff. Overall, the top seller at that golden auction was actually a card, though. A guy that you probably have heard of by now, Luka Doncic, who's just also in another realm, really. When you talk statistically, I think he's been breaking all these playoff records.
Yep.
I think he and Michael Jordan were the only players to, or reach that 250-point mark in X amount of games. He already has the Mavs record for 40-point playoff games, which Dirk Nowitzki had 7.
That's crazy.
He just tied and passed that, I believe. So, but this Luka card, it sold for $660,000, just over that. And it was a National Treasures rookie patch, 7 of 10, not quite 1 of 1.
Yeah.
If it was a 1 of 1, then we're talking millions,
multi-million. Yeah.
But just again, who's got that money? I don't know, but they're buying that, and especially with the way everything else is going, people just want something they can hold in their hand.
Mm-hmm.
The slab is gives more confidence than cryptocurrency and NFTs, I guess, at this point.
Yep.
Now, speaking of memorabilia, kind of a crazy story. So there's a Yankees minor league prospect, former Yankee, named Jake Sanford. He was drafted in the 3rd round in 2019. He was let go from the Yankees for allegedly just hassling teammates for game-used gear, to the point where when their backs would turn, he would just swipe it, and then he would go to Facebook fan groups and then sell them this game used gear, and then sometimes not make good on it, to the point where fans had contacted Facebook, the organization, and other people involved. That is kind of wild, and I guess like we never really talk about this aspect, but I guess something like that could get pretty addictive.
Absolutely.
If you're trying to supplement. Now this guy signed his entry deal for like a $526,000 signing bonus. So we're not saying he was hurting, but anyone that accrues a certain lifestyle, you're going to turn to. What do you make of that, and what do you make of like getting cut for that reason?
Your average minor league players are, if I'm not mistaken, are making somewhere in the $40,000 range. Okay, that don't get signed to these huge contracts. Right. So your average minor leaguer doesn't have $500,000. I think that it is something that is addictive, as you said. I think once he started, he couldn't stop. He may be a fanboy at heart as well. So you could still be a professional ball player at 19 years old and still be a fanboy and still get on people's nerves because you're treating them differently by being a fanboy. I think it's pretty disgusting, the level that it got to. I mean, I could totally understand asking some players to autograph some stuff for you every now and then, but to the point of where you're, finagling money out of innocent people and doing shady stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree with him being released. It's shameful, and it's probably going to end his career, I would think, because there's not going to be a lot of people who are going to get near this dude and have them in their organization creating friction with players. So very unusual, but I think it probably goes on more often than what we hear about, because those guys do make so little, and those little carrots are always dangled in front of them. I mean, if I were a ball player, I'd probably try to, make a few extra bucks on the side if I could, talking to some buddies that were, superstars or whatever it may be. But yeah, he went to the extreme, and I think they took the proper action and letting him go. So
I think if he was all into that, though, he might have been better off to have the foresight to sort of make connections now. And then if your career doesn't pan out, then you go
Right.
into memorabilia
Exactly.
or something like that. But
Yeah, he could have stockpiled this stuff for several years and,
Yeah.
had a nice little nest egg
Yeah.
instead of doing it the way he did. You know, I don't understand it. I mean, he must be hard up for money in some way, or maybe he just gets a rush off of it. I mean,
Right.
Who knows?
But
you know?
the way they made it sound, the most egregious error was just the incessant hounding, probably
Yep.
of the stars,
Yep.
because that's who Steph would be most in demand. But
Yeah.
that
You would
is-
think most ball players would be kind to other ball players,
Yeah.
even if they're in the lower levels. So he must have gotten to a point where it was absolutely ridiculous. It had to have been.
Well, and then stealing equipment from teammates.
Yeah,
You know, like not what you know how superstitious baseball players are. Imagine if you steal like the top prospects,
Cleats.
unwatched glove or cleats,
or whatever. Yeah.
or whatever. But well, now he has more time to watch the NBA playoffs, so we'll
true.
get to that. So, the winding down, right? NBA playoffs, and we're one step away from seeing who's going to be in the finals in June. And I just love like the finals in June. I have such fond memories. Mid to late '90s,
Oh, gosh.
obviously Rockets.
Yes.
But Jordan and just all the promos for finals in June. It's just
Utah and the Knicks. And
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Detroit, and I mean, there was a lot of excitement in basketball in the '90s when it came to the finals.
Yeah, and as you predicted, giving you kudos, the Warriors are on a roll.
Yeah.
Looked like they were going to sweep the Mavs, but
Yeah.
then again, Luka showed up. It's 3-1. I love how everyone now automatically thinks they're going to be the first team in history to come from 3-0 down
Yeah.
and take out the Warriors. It's not going to happen.
I don't believe so.
It won't happen.
No.
I'm pretty sure it ends Game 5 in Golden State.
Yep.
But it's still a heroic effort. I don't think the Mavs even should have been there yet.
I don't either.
So if they make some good draft decisions, free agent decisions, keep their core, I think the Mavericks are going to be competitive for years.
I agree. They were very fortunate this year. They had some breaks fall their way as far as injuries to other teams along the way. So, yeah, they're a little overachieving this year, but I think they're going to be a mainstay in the playoffs for several years to come.
Absolutely. And then in the Eastern Conference, you have the most competitive, uncompetitive series I've ever seen because
The swings, yeah.
the swing. It's been the first 4 games. I know for a fact there was 20-point leads by one of the two teams, the Celtics or the Heat, and it looked like they were just going to keep trading games. But then the Celtics took Game 5.
Yep.
So now you're going back to Boston if you're the Heat and you got to win. And they've had all these just real touchy injuries.
Yeah.
Both teams have. But I think the Celtics had a horrendous start to the season as we've discussed before. And now they're just gelling, and I'm thinking Boston, Golden State.
I am too.
And then
I have no reason to think otherwise.
I think Golden State takes it, but
I do too.
Boston's size could come into play.
Yeah.
I mean, it just depends. Again, a lot of these teams, just at this point in the season especially, have nagging injuries. But now he may not be as much of a household name as Curry or Doncic, but I have to say that Tatum just became the second youngest player ever behind Kobe Bryant.
Yeah.
1,500 points in the playoffs, and I was like, "Whoa, wait a minute! I thought the Celtics had been, in a drought. They've been in a championship
Yeah.
drought, but they've gone to a lot of playoff games the last few years."
And you say he may not be as popular as some of the other guys. Well, let me tell you, that gap is closing really, really quick. I've
really
had
is.
2 people today alone ask about Jason Tatum.
Mm-hmm.
So, Tatum is probably the hottest basketball player on the planet right now, even hotter than Luka, and even hotter than Ja Morant. He's just blowing it up, and not to mention the fact that he plays for Boston, which has an enormous fan base. So, the excitement around this kid right now is at an all-time high, and he's just starting to reach a different level in his career. He's becoming an absolute superstar. So, it's going to be exciting to see how his career unfolds and how big he really gets. But I think, I'm not going to say LeBron level and Luka level just now, but I think he's approaching that, man. I mean, with his play, if he continues this for a couple more years and starts setting records in the playoffs, Yeah, he's going to be one of the highest in-demand collectible people on the market. So,
And playing for Boston, that helps a lot when you're
Yeah.
playing for a dynasty like
Yep.
that. And we saw what happened to Paul Pierce hobby-wise, when they went on their championship runs. So I think that that is definitely something to look at. And I just want to state that Tatum has been a hobby darling for a while.
He has,
But
yeah.
but when I say household name, I just mean like on a promo.
Yeah.
Are you will
as far
see
as
him,
the average casual fan that doesn't really pay much attention to basketball, they know who Jason Tatum is now.
right?
Yeah,
Because
I get you.
Because maybe they're paying more attention to hockey because it's getting pretty wild there too.
Yep.
Speaking of stars, and this goes for hobby, but also just for the casual hockey fan. Connor McDavid with the Edmonton Oilers, and now they're up 3-1.
Yeah.
In the battle for Canada, they got going up,
And they were down
against the
3-1
Flames.
in their last series.
Yeah, they're up 3-1. His cards are already at the top. I mean, as far as like base and young gun and,
Yes.
and all that basic stuff, he's already the most desirable player.
How can he
to collect
keep
in the
getting better?
NHL. I don't know.
How does he keep getting better?
I mean, just by fulfilling that legacy of, I'm gonna bring the Stanley Cup,
Yeah.
to Edmonton, and then you're kind of out of that shadow, the Great One shadow. So we'll see if he keeps that up. Now you talked about the heartbreaking Game 5 for the Avalanche. I thought
Yeah.
they were gonna wrap that up against the
Yeah.
Blues. What happened there?
Man, goalies,
It's goalies.
goalie man.
Yeah.
I mean, he just had an off night. What are you going to do? The Avalanche have brought a whole lot of energy to the playoffs this year, more so than I think they've done in the last several years when they've gotten far in the contests. But yeah, I mean, it comes down to goalie play. I mean, the game before, their goalie was absolutely horrendous, and then this past game there was some pucks that got by him that shouldn't have got by him, and that's what happens. When you let a team hang around and get to overtime, it's anybody's game. So, but it's only game 5. We got 2 more shots at closing it out. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I hope they're over that hump of sort of being playoff duds. So
Yeah.
I see them advancing to the Western Conference Finals
Yep.
against McDavid
Yeah,
and the
yes.
Oilers.
What a series that would be.
Yeah, it's going to be
Oh.
crazy. Now, on the other side of things, Tampa Bay, who, to really, to some people's surprise, because they were the lower seed this year, they took care of Toronto,
Yeah.
and then they really took care of Florida, sweeping them 4-0.
Yeah.
So, just as in boxing, you got to knock out the champ. I mean, so I would still have them as the favorite. And then for that last spot for the semifinals, Rangers and Hurricanes, also a great series.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Tied at 2.
Mhm.
And also some big stars in the making. And that I love Aho's game for the Hurricanes. And then, of course, you have Panarin.
Yeah.
And then some of the younger guys like Capo for the Rangers. So it's fun, but at this point, I'm thinking what would be real fun, and you would like this, is Colorado Avalanche versus Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah.
That might be like 8-7 every game. Who knows?
Yeah.
Just depending on how the goalies are doing.
There has been some unusually high-scoring games this year in the playoffs.
Yes.
A little bit more so than I can remember in recent history. I don't know what it is, but yeah, there's been a lot of goals being scored.
Oh yeah, for sure. And speaking of goals, it looks like the Astros are finally coming to life. We talked about
Yeah.
it, a couple weeks back, but
Mhm.
since that time, Angels went a little cold, Astros stay hot. We are now first place in the West. Long way to go.
2.5 games up
obviously.
now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Long way to go, but one of the craziest things, I think you mentioned this last time, but Verlander's whip's down to .72.
Yeah.
That,
ridiculous, man.
That is wild. Alvarez tied for second in home runs
Yeah.
with 12. But, again, as you mentioned, he's trailing Aaron Judge, who has 17 home runs
Yeah.
and an insane slugging percentage.
Crazy pace right now.
It's super crazy.
He's on a pace to hit 60 if he keeps that up.
Oh, yeah.
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 I mean, Kyle Tucker's in the top 10 in RBIs. He hit his first home run at home the other day, yesterday, I think it was.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the Astros are just loaded. I mean, there is no weak spot in that lineup. It's just absolutely loaded. Christian Javier had his best game as a professional last night. 9 strikeouts, 5 and 2/3 inning pitched, 1 ball, one walk. So I mean, yeah, we've got an extremely young crop of young arms, that we throw out there, and we've got fantastic veterans, and we're still waiting on McCullers to come back. When McCullers come back, it's going to solidify our rotation even more. It's crazy. We've just got a wealth of really solid pitching right now.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people saw that coming before the season.
No, and I admittedly did not see that whenever they switched to a 6-man rotation. I thought it was because, the lack of that top-tier talent.
Yeah.
But they're very solid.
Yeah.
And having an ace helps.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously.
Yeah.
I think he's, 6-1 now? So one of the best records in the league. So lot going on. And of course, we just had the NFL draft, and so football over the summer will, start building anticipation for all that. Brady returning, quarterback carousel.
Yeah.
We'll see what the Texans do. Can they rise out of obscurity? I don't know, but
I'm doubting it.
But it's Texas and it's football, so people will be talking about it for months, right?
Yes.
On to the cards part of Cards to Yards. What's coming out? What's been out and what's hot?
Well, new this week, we got Impeccable Basketball, which is one of the higher end products that you'll find when it comes to basketball. Absolutely amazing. It's not cheap, but for you big guys out there, come get your Impeccable Basketball. We got a couple of boxes of those in. Speaking of hockey, we've got Stature Hockey, which is another beautiful product from Upper Deck. Mosaic. Panini Mosaic English Premier League soccer came out this week, brand new. And let's see, next week, Panini Prism is finally here after being pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. So that's going to be super, super hot next week. Then we've got Panini Revolution WWE, and I know some folks that are going to absolutely love that. We also got Topps Gypsy Queen in this week after a couple of days delay. That is in, and I got to tell you, I've seen it opened, and it is absolutely beautiful. I like it better than last year's product. I just think it's a little bit prettier. The design's a little bit nicer, easier on the eyes. Saw a guy pull a Chaz McCormick on-card autograph yesterday for the Astros, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, 2 on-card autos per box. $140 per box. You can't beat it. Fantastic deal. One of the better values in baseball. Not to mention the bukus of hidden parallels that you need to have a college degree to figure out how to find. But other than that, I think we've got Champions League Chrome coming out next week for soccer with Topps, and then we've also got our first glimpse of the new MLS Topps Soccer. So a lot of soccer product coming out. Some exciting football coming out, and one of the most popular baseball products, Gypsy Queen, has been released this week. So we've got a lot of good stuff for you to come to check out at the shop. And some great news that came down the chute just 2 days ago. HGA has opened submissions for 45-day turnaround submissions. They're still not going to have the 15 and the 5-day available just yet, but we can now accept 45 business day submissions for HGA. So bring your cards in, let us take a look at them, and let's get your cards slabbed for you.
Very cool. Do you feel soccer cards heating up as the World Cup approaches?
I feel it just a little bit. I think we're a little far away still from World Cup. I think once we hit around September-ish, then the fever's going to start kicking in, and then it's just going to be crazy. So I think this will be a huge holiday season for soccer, and we've got a lot of it, so come on in and get some soccer.
I know there's a ton coming out, and like you said, once those big names perform, and then of course the names that come out of nowhere.
And if Team USA goes, if they go a couple of rounds in, then it's just going to ramp up the excitement that much more. So go Team USA.
Yeah, especially for Pulisic's cards.
Oh gosh, yeah. Pulisic, Musa, Pepe. I mean, there's all kinds of stars.
Well, that about wraps it up. We like to end with glossary term, just in case there's any terms floating around for any of you new or veteran collectors that have dove back in.
Yeah.
Today's word of the day is encased.
Yeah.
And very simple, Preston. We've talked about one touch. I think I did a glossary term
Yep.
for that. An encased card is just something that from the factory comes in a one touch. Usually has a label on it. I know Panini does like their 1-in-1 and it's usually a 1-of-1 card.
Yeah.
Or a very low serial number card. And we're talking anywhere from, Topps does it with their auto series like 50 or $60 and up to, thousands. But encased. So I've always wondered, when you get an encased card, I guess some people still send it off to get graded, right?
Yeah.
So they just send it as is, and then
Sure.
then the grading company will just take it out and grade it.
They will.
But very cool, good stuff. Looking forward to seeing who makes the Stanley Cup Finals
yeah.
and the NBA Finals. I'll see you again in about 2 weeks or so. From
Yeah.
Preston, I'm Mark. Back to you, Chaz.
Well, gang, that's all for today's episode. So join us next week. Cars to Yards, brought to you by the Adventure Stadium, and the adventure begins. Again, we're located off 1488 and Woodland Square Boulevard. See you next time.